Thank you for joining me on this glorious and amazing day where the sun shines so nicely right above the clouds. So this is the problem. As we mentioned last week, the problem is you can give and give and give. And whatever you give might last sometimes minutes, hours, days, but it doesn't go further. And there's really nothing you could do. Cream shall only be placed on a cake, not on the table, not on a napkin, and just keep on dissolving and falling apart because it just won't work. It just won't work. So why don't you recognize it when you begin to date? You haven't seen any of it. Because consciously or subconsciously, the codependent doesn't come to you and says, give me, give me, give me. I'll tell you what the codependent individual does. Let's go to an analogy, because that's the way my brain works and that's the way I explain things. There are two individuals sitting side by side on the dock, and they're both holding a worm in their hand. They're not twins, but they almost look like twins because they're both sitting on the same dock, 1 foot away from each other, no social distancing because there was no corona, and they're sitting by the water. They're not drinking water, but they're sitting by the water. And they're both holding a worm in their hand. And they're both looking for fish. Doesn't it look identical? But yet, it's a world apart from Mr. A versus Mr. B. Mr. A, his heart is filled with compassion. He just wants to feed the fish that he believes did not get to eat too much. So he holds out the worm, and before you know it, a fish comes and just gobbles up the worm. And Mr. A, so excited, says, oh, that fish, oh, I'm so happy that fish will be satisfied for the next few hours. B looks like he's doing the same thing, just, let's look a bit closer. There's a hook inside the worm. And the fish looks at the worm and comes bites straight into it and is hooked. So their actions, A and B, look the same. Their intentions is a different from day and night. A knows that love is a verb. Love is to give, not to take. B, love to them means to take. But you can walk over to take. So our subconscious mind knows this. Many times unintentional manipulation is, I love you, I love you. Even by gifts. You're basically putting bait on a hook. Once the fish, once the friend, once the lover, once the spouse says, wow, that looks like a good worm. He or she looks like such a kind and giving person. Let me go bite into it. Let me embrace that lover. Let me embrace that relationship. And suddenly you realize you can't move. You can't go anywhere. I'll never forget the story, it just comes to mind. Years ago, a couple came to me, and the husband was going out of his mind. And the husband was telling me, it's literally within a half an hour that he leaves his house to go on his business day. The phone rings. Where are you? How are you? He says, I just left. I know, but I love you. She's codependent. She's terrified. She's scared to be alone. She has to breathe with him. And with the same couple, I remember his frustration where he said, I can't even go to the bathroom. And I say, what do you mean? He says, when I go to the restroom or washroom, whatever you call it, she follows me. And she sits on the floor right out the bathroom waiting for me. And I turned to her and I said, is he exaggerating, or I want to hear it from your side? She says, of course I do that. And I just looked at her, trying not to judge her. She says, I just love him. She was not opened for any type of therapy or for any different view how this is totally not love. This is actual choking someone emotionally. And you could just imagine where this marriage went. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week. Have an awesome day.